Welcome to lecture part 3 of the nervous system and tissue chapter. This lecture video is going to be very short. We're just going to be looking at the function of the supporting, or in other words, glial cells found in the nervous system. Remember that glial cells are also known as neuroglia, and these are cells in the nervous system that are other than neurons. So we have neurons and glial cells. And glial cells are pretty much there just to support the neurons and the nervous tissue. Now, within the central nervous system, we have 4 major groups of glial cells. The first group is called the oligodendrocytes, and you can see them pictured in blue here. The oligodendrocytes are really important because they help to form the myelin sheath around the axons found within the central nervous system. Remember, Schwann cells are going to form the myelin sheaths in the peripheral nervous system. The second major group of glial cells that we have in the central nervous system are the astrocytes. They help to surround capillaries in the central nervous system to help form what we call the blood-brain barrier. So they help to regulate what type of contents can exit the blood and actually enter the nervous tissue. The astrocytes have many other functions as well, and I'm actually going to talk about them a little bit more in the next slide. Then third, we have the ependymal cells. And you can see the astrocytes are shown in green in this image here. So you can see it surrounding the blood capillary, also being associated with like the cell body of the neuron. Here, what we see in pink are the ependymal cells. They line the cavities, or in other words, ventricles in the brain. So we have a bunch of fluid-filled cavities within our brain, filled with cerebrospinal fluid, and lining those cavities are these ependymal cells. You can see that they are ciliated on this end here. That's because ependymal cells are going to be really important in helping to form and circulate cerebrospinal fluid throughout the central nervous system. And then our fourth major group of glial cells are called microglia because they are very small glial cells, and you can see them pictured here. These, I like to think of them as being the immune cells of the brain. Okay, we don't have white blood cells in our nervous tissue because white blood cells cannot exit our blood and enter the tissue of our nervous system. So instead, our nervous tissue pretty much has its own immune cells, and these are the microglial cells. They're going to be really important in removing debris from the nervous tissue, any pathogens that might get in there. They're also going to be really important in removing and destroying any aged or damaged cells. Now, let's look a little bit more at the astrocytes. The term astro actually means star because these cells are star-shaped. They are actually the most abundant glial cells of the central nervous system, and they constitute over 90% of the tissue in some areas. Although they help to form the blood-brain barrier and therefore help to regulate what materials can leave the blood and enter the brain, they also have many other functions. If you want to read about these other functions, you can look here, but let me just quickly summarize some of these functions for you. So the astrocytes, in addition to forming that blood-brain barrier, they also are going to help to nourish the neurons. They're going to help to stimulate new neural connections. They're going to help to regulate the chemical environment within the nervous tissue, and they're going to help to form scar tissue if the nervous tissue becomes damaged for any reason. And now let's look at the supporting cells, or the glial cells of the peripheral nervous system. There's only 2 major types of glial cells found in the peripheral nervous system. That includes the Schwann cells, which you see pictured down here. Schwann cells, again, form the myelin sheath around the myelinated axons of the peripheral nervous system. They also are going to help in aiding in the regeneration of damaged nerve fibers or axons. Instead of branching like the oligodendrocytes do, each Schwann cell actually wraps around an individual section of the axon, as you see pictured here. Satellite cells, right here you can see the satellite cells over here. They surround the somas, or in other words, cell bodies of the neurons in the ganglia of the peripheral nervous system. Remember, the ganglia are pretty much not like swellings on the nerves of the peripheral nervous system, and this is where we have synapses forming between different neurons of the peripheral nervous system. Satellite cells are going to be really important in providing electrical insulation and also regulating the chemical environment of the neurons. They provide very similar functions to the astrocytes of the central nervous system. All right, so here's a little review activity looking at the cells of the nervous system. So pause this video and try to answer the questions, and then we'll go over them together. All right, number 1. What type of cell lines the ventricles and assists in the production of cerebrospinal fluid? That would be the ependymal cells. Number 2, this is a generalized term for all the cells found in the central nervous system other than neurons. The correct answer here would be neuroglia or glial cells. Number 3, these cells form the myelin sheath around axons in the central nervous system and therefore increase the speed of nerve signals there. That would be the oligodendrocytes. Oligo again means few, dendro means branching. So these cells have branches on them, and those branches wrap around the axons. Number 4, forms the myelin sheath around axons in the peripheral nervous system, therefore increasing the speed of the nerve signals there. That would be the Schwann cells. Number 5, this helps form the blood-brain barrier. It also has many other functions in the central nervous system, like nourishing the neurons, helping to regulate the chemical environment in the nervous tissue, and so forth. But that would be the astrocytes. But the blood-brain barrier is a very important thing, so it's a very important role of these astrocytes. Number 6, these are immune cells of the central nervous system that remove debris, pathogens, and damaged cells. That would be the microglia or microglial cells. And then number 7, these cells transmit electrical and chemical signals between cells. Well, this isn't actually a glial cell here. This is a neuron. So remember, within the nervous tissue, we either have neurons or glial cells. And neurons are the cells that are actually transmitting electrical signals and chemical signals to communicate between cells. They're carrying out the major function of the nervous system. And then, this should say number 8. Let me fix that. Number 8, it surrounds and protects the somas in the ganglia of the peripheral nervous system. That would be the satellite cells. All right, so that is the end of lecture part 3 on the nervous system.